What up, all my fight fans? UFC 314 is in the books, and guys, what a great fight it was. It was a great fight night, I should say. The card was great from top to bottom. I am excited to talk about it. I was so excited to watch it. So let's get into it, shall we? You had in the main event Alexander Volkanovski taking on Diego Lopes. It was a really fun fight to watch. It was a complete slaughter, if you ask my opinion, for Alexander Volkanovski. You could have given maybe Diego Lopes one round, maybe if you're being a little generous, maybe 2 rounds. But at the end of the day, Volkanovski looked like the Volkanovski of old. Volkanovski went in there, pretty much utilized his wrestling, utilized his striking, utilized his footwork. He did everything from top to bottom like the way Volkanovski usually does. He pretty much looked like a bull in there, and he was dictating everything, every single step, every single inch of the octagon, and he looked so good. Diego Lopes had some good couple minutes in the rounds each and every time. You know, he was coming forward, he was putting on the pressure a lot, he was, you know, doing a lot of different things in there to make Volkanovski, you know, not make it as easy as Volkanovski wanted it to be. But at the end of the day, it was still a really good fight. I really enjoyed it. You know, at the end of the day, Diego Lopes is still very young. Diego Lopes, you know, still has a lot more to give. You know, he is still a newcomer to the division. A lot of people say he didn't necessarily deserve this title shot just yet because of his resume. And honestly, yes, I 100% agree. But, you know, we couldn't have gotten a better fight from anybody else within the division. You got a lot of grapplers. You know, you got a few newcomers within the division. I think Diego Lopes was the best choice right now. And, you know, a couple more fights, he could actually challenge for that title one more time. You know, he takes some time to better himself, to make himself more of a well-rounded MMA fighter instead of just coming forward and just wanting to box, because that's what it felt like you wanted to do, just stand up, stand and bang, and we all love that, but unfortunately that does not win fights. What Volkanovski does win fights, utilizing some of his kicks, doing his wrestling, using his boxing, using everything that he has in his arsenal to win a fight, and that's what he did. He became the oldest man to win a lighter weight championship belt. A lot of people said it couldn't be done. A lot of people said nobody has ever done it under the age of 35. The guy is either 36 or 37, and he became the champion once again. So he is showing that you can do it at an older age. Not a lot of people probably could, but Volkanovski did, and I am very much looking forward to his reign throughout the division. You know, when he had that championship belt prior to his loss against Ilia Topuria, it was a very exciting time, and I'm sure it's just going to get even more exciting with all these new stars coming in and showcasing their talent against Volkanovski. So, you know, there's a lot to be said about that. Well, moving forward on, in the co-main event, you had Paddy Pimblett taking on Michael Chandler, and what a performance it was by Paddy Pimblett. You know, Paddy, he showcased a lot of his talent. He showcased a lot of what he can do within the cage, and we saw him against guys like Tony Ferguson, who was way past his prime, and we also saw him against Bobby Green or King Green. You know, King Green has always been a talented fighter, but I wouldn't call him a really great fighter. But this was a really good challenge, because Michael Chandler, even though he has been on a little bit of a downward spiral with his whole career and whatnot, I feel like this was a big tough test for him. You know, this was going to be a big tough test for Paddy Pimblett to see where exactly he was, and he passed that test with flying colors. He pretty much showcased his skills within grappling, his skills with striking, his skills all around. You know, the guy, you know, he's not just a grappler. I always felt like he was just a grappler here. I felt like he was always just going for that submission and everything like that. But no, he was able to box. He was able to pop right back up when he was taken down. He was able to do a few takedowns of his own against Michael Chandler, who was a high-level wrestler himself. You know, he pretty much showcased a lot of people like, hey, I'm here, and I'm here to stay, and I'm ready for the top 5. And I believe so. I believe that's what Paddy Pimblett is ready for. I wouldn't put him against the championship just yet, because again, the past couple of fights that he's had, it's been against lower level championship guys, lower level challenger guys. You know, Michael Chandler isn't the top of the top guy. You know, you got Bobby Green and Tony Ferguson, who are not necessarily the top level guys, but now this is for him to get in there. I wouldn't want him to go right away. I wouldn't want him to start saying like, hey, yeah, I'm ready for this, ready for that, and ready to be a champion right now, when you're going against Islam, who is just the highest of the highs right now. You know, we can't deny that. So who should be next for him? I would really love to see that Charles Oliveira fight. I believe those guys both are about the same size, both about the same reach, and both have basically the same amount of skills when it comes to grappling and striking. That would be a great fight. As far as Michael Chandler goes, it's very unfortunate what happened with Michael Chandler. He wasted 2 years waiting for that Conor McGregor fight, and it never transpired. And now, he did lose a few years of his career, and he's never going to get those back, and he's been already losing a couple of great fights against great contenders, so there's not a whole lot left for him to prove. He's already became a champion. I don't ever see him becoming a UFC champion. I think those times are done, especially with Patty. It was kind of to see where Michael Chandler was at. When Michael Chandler lost, he always lost to the upper echelon guys like Dustin Poirier, like Justin Gaethje, and like Charles Oliveira. Now this is Paddy Pimblett, who was basically barely in the top 10, so now he can't even reach those guys anymore. So I'm not sure. I would love to see him in kind of like a almost like star fights, not necessarily championship contending fights, more like just somebody that you could put him in there, like Kobe Covington. I know he called him out, and a few other guys, like maybe even a last fight for Dustin Poirier or something like that. Nothing that's going to get him closer to a title, but something that's going to give us excitement. Maybe possibly a rematch with Pitbull, who Pitbull just became a member in the UFC and fought on this card, and that's who we're going to talk about next. That's a good matchup for them too, because Pitbull didn't look so good himself. Pitbull pretty much, we all remember Pitbull in Bellator. If you watch Bellator, he was such a great fighter, and I believe he still can be a great fighter. I think it was just a little bit difficult, a little bit more, I think he went too far too soon within the division, within the UFC. Maybe it was just a little bit much for him at this very moment, but I still have a little faith that he can overcome this and possibly fight for a championship belt one day. I'm only saying that because if y'all remember, Eddie Alvarez went against Donald Cerrone when he first came over, and he did not do that great himself. But then what ended up happening, Eddie Alvarez got better, and he ended up becoming world champion. So that's a possibility for Pitbull. And you never know, maybe they can meet at a catch weight or something with Michael Chandler and Pitbull. They have a bit of a rivalry from Bellator, and since them two both lost, that could be somewhat of a good fight. Or you could have Pitbull go against Jose Aldo. We've always wanted to see that kind of fight. But anyways, at the end of the day, Yair Rodriguez looked really, really great against Pitbull. Yair Rodriguez looked on point. It could be the fact that Yair Rodriguez is just that much more bigger, that much more stronger, that much more taller. He just had all the advantages over Pitbull. Or it could just be the fact that Pitbull just did not show up really. I don't know. We could say anything we want to say, but Yair Rodriguez looked really, really good. And I'm sure he's going to be sticking around a little bit longer, because there's going to be a lot of great contenders for him to fight within the 145-pound division. It was a great night for the 145-pounders, for sure, 100%. Whether you have it, guys, there's a few more fights I would definitely love to talk about, but definitely check it out. If you can check out the replays, 314, great card, great fight night. I highly recommend it. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.